Hello everyone. So here we are in our final session, and we're really excited to have this patient and caregiver panel. Once again, my name is Yvonne Diaz. I'm an ALK positive lung cancer patient, diagnosed in August 2021, and thankfully still on my first line treatment. My career background is in PR and communications, and I've since become a board member and a volunteer for ALK Positive because I think I can apply my skills to one of the biggest PR problems out there, and that's lung cancer. So it's a real pleasure to be here with you all and to be a part of this organization and to have this fantastic panel with us today. The other thing I just want to say before we get started is we are a patient-run organization, and really we also need to look back at our amazing trailblazers. And of course, we always think of Gina Hollenbach. Gina's husband, Greg, has been with us from last night, and today I believe, I can't see with that light, so I'm not sure if he's still here, but really just wanted to thank Greg and his family and really just acknowledge all the amazing work that Gina did for all of us. She was such a source of inspiration, so thank you. Thank you. And it's also why we coined ALK Positive Awareness Month in June, which is the month that Gina had passed. So, but with that, today is really about really everything, life, love, laughter. I think we've called our amazing panel. And I'd like to go around and really just ask each panelist to introduce themselves really briefly and a little bit about your journey and what you got, how you got here, and then we'll take it from here. So Juli, you first. You have your own mic. That's it.
You don't need to turn it on. It's on. It's on.
I think it should be on. Just try. Is it working?
Hello? It's on. Okay, good. Hi, I'm Juli Posner. I am a ALK positive patient. Well, I'm an ALK positive person. I was diagnosed right before the pandemic. Blank.
And your background, your chef.
Oh, okay, my background. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a little background of the moment. I am newly on lorlatinib. So this is a little bit of lorlatinib.
Real life.
Right, this is real life. This is real life thing. Okay, I'm Juli Posner. I was diagnosed right before the pandemic. I was just a typical mom. I was a gym rat. I did all the typical things that anybody who was healthy did. And I had an endoscopy, and my doctor found a little node on my lung, and that was the beginning of my journey. So I'm here now, and I'm a volunteer for ALK Positive. I write your little your recipe at the bottom of your newsletter every couple of months, and that's my story. Thanks.
Thank you, Juli.
Oh, yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Brandi Bryant. I was diagnosed in January 2018. I am a publications manager. I'm a mom of 4. I originally started with chemo and radiation, but progressed during chemo, and I've been on alectinib since May 2018, and I'm doing well.
I'm Matt Quirk. I am an ALK patient. I was diagnosed September of 22, and I am also a doctor. I'm an interventional radiologist. I practice at UCLA in Los Angeles, and I specialize in minimally invasive cancer treatments. So you never think that it's going to happen to me, but it did happen to me. And I'm on lorlatinib. Happy to be here.
My name is Jay Rosenbaum. I'm the only one up here that's not an ALK patient. Shout out to the ALKies out there. Let's go. My wife is, though, and in fact, she's sitting out there. Her name's Monica. Say hi, Eva. So that's Monica. And our journey is funny. Kirk mentioned the other day when he said we were diagnosed. It's true. We're diagnosed as the care partners as well. So our journey started about 2.5 years ago with an incidental finding. She felt great, no symptoms, and 2.5 years later, surgery, chemo, alectinib, and we can talk a little more after.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
New York.
New York. That's also good to know. We got New York, California. Was it
Atlanta.
Atlanta?
New York.
New York. Okay, and London via New Jersey. So one of the things when we were catching up before our call, one of the amazing things I think all of us had in common is that in all our diagnosis, advocacy had a big key in getting us to get to where we are in our own care. I mean, you know, Brandi, you shared some amazing things that you had a split MDT at one point saying like, oh, should she do immunotherapy or go on a targeted therapy, which almost seems unthinkable given what we know about ALK today. But I guess this was 2018. So maybe you can talk a little bit about your own advocacy and how that has helped you.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to run into and meet survivors at the very beginning of my journey. Once I told a friend knew a friend who, who actually invited me to a lung cancer research conference that happened to be happening in Atlanta. And I met Quirk and Patty Watkins at the time. And I always say it's like such an integral part of my story because Quirk pulled these pills out. And I was joking with them the other day, like, you didn't have a case on it. Like, you're just, and now the other day I was like, and you're just showing me how rich you are. Like, you don't even care that you've got these $100 pills just shaking around in your pocket all loosey-goosey. Like, so I was kind of like, I was deep in my treatment. I was like in chemotherapy. I wasn't really, but I knew about the ALK Positive page. I wasn't posting. So I was like kind of just, browsing it. I'd introduce myself, but I wasn't asking any questions. And whenever I progressed with the pericardial effusion that tested positive for malignant cells, the tumor board, as Yvonne mentioned, was 50-50 on whether I should do immunotherapy or take targeted therapy. And because I had met Quirk and because I had been on the ALK Positive page and seeing how people were doing, I'm like, on immunotherapy, which was not well, I'm like, well, yeah, I'm gonna do the targeted therapy. So I always say, I count ALK Positive because that group was my really main influence for choosing, even though my oncologist did say, I'd go with targeted therapy, seeing what people were posting on their own personal experiences made me also like, yeah, I'm gonna go with targeted therapy because I don't know if immunotherapy would work well for me. And now here it is, years later, after I'd made that decision, they're like, oh, by the way, ALK Positive patients don't respond to immunotherapy. It can cause you to progress. I'm like, so it's just so important for people to be educated and try to get a little bit of research. I know it can be overwhelming, but that's part of my advocacy is just trying to, especially in my community, just get the word out, like try to find out information because it could be life-saving.
Yeah, that's amazing. It also speaks to so much of what we try and do at ALK Positive through all our healing arts, bringing empowerment, information, education, and you can dip in and out. Matt, also you had another very interesting story as an interventional radiologist. Here you are dealing with cancer every single day, and then you yourself become diagnosed, and your own advocacy has helped you in terms of some of the treatments and your own path. Could you describe a little bit about that?
Yeah, there were 2 points in my journey where self-advocacy really played an important role. One is that early on, under the guidance of my oncologist, I started on alectinib. And I decided that I wanted to seek some second opinions. So my wife and I went down to Irvine and saw Dr. Ignatius Wu, and he's a big proponent of lorlatinib first line. And so he said, Matt, you're a doctor. He showed me his PowerPoint slides that he shows to oncologists on lorlatinib first line. And I did my own research too, and I was like, you know what, I'm convinced I want to be on lorlatinib first line. And so I went back to my oncologist and said, can I be on lorlatinib? And he said, sure, yeah, we'll switch to lorlatinib, no problem. So that was one point early on where, I'm comfortable with that decision. And then the other point was deciding that I wanted to have LCT. My oncologist I really like my oncologist a lot, and he's a great lung oncologist at UCLA. he's not a big proponent of LCT. He didn't suggest it, but I brought it up, and I told him, just based on my research that me and Karen, my wife over there, had done, it looks like LCT is a good idea for a lot of people, and something I want to do. And my oncologist helped facilitate it, but it was really something that we took on and said, we want to do this. So I ended up having my primary tumor removed surgically, and that was I think an important step in my journey too. So yeah, both of those were opportunities to kind of put myself in the driver's seat.
That's great, and such powerful, again, shows the role of information and education and just pushing for yourself. I'd actually like to come to Jay next. So part of advocacy, a lot of the focus goes on the patient, but the caregiver, you are the ears, you're there listening in ways that often we can't when we're in the middle of our appointments. It's also a fine line because knowing when to push, when to step back. I mean, tell us a little bit more about the role you play with your wife. Also, lung cancer doesn't just happen to the patient, it happens to the entire family. So maybe you can tell us a bit more about your perspective of how your role in this whole journey.
No problem. So I sort of equate it to driving a car. You've got a driver and you've got a passenger, and there are times where you have to kind of switch seats. So in our case, where we were going to certain appointments where you knew that the information kind of would go in one ear and out the other, I really needed to be there to absorb. And these devices are incredible. I highly recommend you use them. They're called cell phones, and they've got memos on them. And my recommendation is, if you haven't started using the memo feature yet, start now, especially for anybody newly diagnosed, because I come up from a legal background, and you learn in law school that your most recent memory or when it actually occurs is going to be the most accurate. So sometimes I look back at our journey that's on here, and I read it, and I'm astonished that some of the stuff I thought happened at certain dates or certain times, I'm wrong, but it's right on the phone. So that's something I highly recommend. I just wanted to mention something else. In my household, the wife doesn't like the term caregiver or what do we call it now? Partner. So I don't know if you could read this, but in my house, we had a conversation, several weeks ago with my daughters, and we've decided that we're called palkies. So we're palkies to the alkies. I'm not suggesting in any way, I wish I could take credit. It's one of my daughters. I have 3 daughters that are registered nurses, and they came up with it. But the point is, I'm not recommending that ALK Positive do this next year. If you do, just give me credit on the bottom. But all I'm saying is that it's fine for some people. Some people have no problem being called a caregiver or a care partner. I personally don't care. But the wife, she feels that she doesn't need to have care given to her at all times. That's what I was getting at, is the sort of changing seats from the driver's seat to the passenger seat. Most of the time, she's driving.
Right, that's amazing. And I love this palki thing, and I have a feeling we're speaking to a lawyer, so we might have to make a note of who we're giving credit to here. But I'd like to come to Juli next. You're one of the most positive people I've come across, and look, it's not toxic positivity, because I think sometimes you have people who also deny how you feel, and that can be really hard when you're having a bad day. You just want someone listening to you and saying this is how I feel, and they're like, no, but it's okay, and you're just like, just tell me it's crap. But Juli, you have such a positivity, so I don't know, what advice do you have for people who are just coming into this, and tell us a bit more about how you deal with all.
I mean, my philosophy is it's just as easy to worry than it is to believe positively. So I am a positive believer. I mean, I look at the research, I look at what's going on here. I could wake up every morning. I'm a 5-year survivor. So I could have woken up every morning and been miserable and worried and felt sorry for myself. But instead, I got my ears double pierced, started a new career as a chef. I mean, it's just about living. There are so many people that wake up in the morning and don't come home and don't have lung cancer. So I think just know that there is a lot of hope out there, and connect. I mean, connections are really everything. My connection, even to the Facebook group in ALK Positive, has been unbelievable. Some of the best things that have happened in my life, some of the friendship connections. I mean, Jay's wife, Monica, right here, she's a neighbor of mine. I didn't know her. We were connected by Amanda, and because I am the purveyor of positivity, people tend to like to connect to me. I like to remind people not to worry, like Jeff Sturm, who was my ALK buddy when I first was diagnosed. Somebody said to me, get an ALK buddy, which I think was a great suggestion. What that means, I don't exactly know, but they turned me on to Jeff Sturm, who was a survivor longer than I was in California. And the first thing he said to me when I turned on the Zoom call that we had is, you're not going to die from this. And it honestly flipped the switch for me. So I guess, why am I positive? You all know I have a great partner. I have amazing friends like Monica, like Amanda, like the other people in my world that aren't ALK. And I think the other thing I will tell you is I don't wake up like I have a disease every morning. And I think that is everything. Cancer has, I always say cancer has not defined me, it has redefined me. So it's attitude. Attitude is everything. The other thing I suggest to everybody is get a dog. A dog. That's it too.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. This whole idea of getting an ALK buddy, I love that advice, and I think that's so important because not everyone's ready to join the support group, but I do think, and not everyone can be in there, which is also why the care partner role is so important, and PALKY, I should say. But anyway, I wanted to come back to another question, just to continue this, like what other advice does our panel have for newly diagnosed people? And maybe I can come to Brandi as someone who has had this condition since 2018. What advice would you give to someone today coming in?
So what I tend to tell new ALKies is, or really anybody diagnosed with any type of lung cancer, is to not forget the mental health aspect. Yes, I really do believe strongly in, thinking positively. It's an important part of trying to thrive in this journey instead of just survive. But we have to, for me personally, I couldn't be truly positive until I dealt with the negative of it. You deal with the reality of this super sucks. All of my plans for my life has changed. You don't know if you have children, you don't know if you're gonna be there for them. My youngest kid was 3 years old. I had just gotten a divorce. It was what the is happening? How am I diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer? And I'm I was already just gonna be barely making it out of this divorce, right? How am I gonna do this? So I think it's important for people to not forget to get mental health support. Talk to a therapist. And I loved what they were taught, that we had palliative care here. I think many institutions are failing us by not telling us what services palliative care offers. Did you know, and as expensive as healthcare is in America, many people cannot afford counselors or therapists. But if you're already in the system, and palliative care has counselors, palliative care has a whole system of therapists who actually are great because they have experience working with patients who have terminal diagnoses. So it's not like you're going out trying to interview and do you have experience with grief? Do you have experience with, a patient? You've got these people with the experience right there in the hospital. So it's whenever I was first diagnosed, I once you get through the treatment and I started alectinib and I can breathe again and I can walk up the stairs and, play with my kids again, I'm hey, I'm going to advocate. And so, run around and you try to advocate. And a year later, it was really right before the pandemic. I'm that's when it kind of hit me okay, I'm not, when you're initially diagnosed, you think, oh, I'm gonna die, right? Or at least I did, like, oh my gosh, how long am I gonna be here? I don't know anything about this. When you realize, like, I'm gonna live, and then it's like, how do I handle this? It's very helpful to have someone professional to turn to. I believe that's really critical. No matter how you're feeling, sometimes, like, honestly, I haven't talked to my therapist in a while, but I like, in my mind, having a great team, and we could also talk about this later, like in general, like I have a second opinion ALK doctor. I've got, like a whole team, because you're gonna have side effects, a whole team. I've got a neurologist, to make you feel secure. So part of that team is also a therapist to me.
I love that you brought that up, because I think a lot of times in our own experiences, the doctors are treating our medical condition. And once you start to feel better, I think that is when the mental health issues start to strike you, and you're aware of the data and all of that. So,
yeah, because you're not fighting so much for your life. And it's like, what is my life going to look like? Yeah, and you can just live. And then once you kind of face that, for me, like, I tell people I'm the happiest I've ever been. Which is insanity.
I love
but
that.
I am so happy with my life right now, because I'm just feel so good despite, the hiccups and side effects and bumps. I'm just comfortable with who I am as a person, and I do have a positive outlook on, like, what will be next. I love coming to these conferences and seeing the next research. I'm like, oh yeah, that's gonna be another drug on the list for me.
Research is absolutely hope.
Yeah, research is key.
It's absolutely true. And Matt, I mean, as someone with a professional background, and Brandi was bringing up this important point of having a whole team around you, and I wonder if that's something you basically started living that from the minute you got diagnosed, right? You started seeking the second opinion, going to others. I mean, what more do you think about in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, it's critical. It's just so important to have a good team centered around your oncologist. You just have to have an oncologist that you have a good relationship with, that you trust, and that you think is looking out for your best interests, and that is able to kind of help gather the rest of your team, consult other specialists as needed. Sometimes when you go seek a second opinion, I mean, the times to seek a second opinion is when you've first been diagnosed, you're coming up with your initial treatment plan, and you want to make sure that it's something that makes sense to an ALK specialist. And you go see one of the people that was up here on the panel earlier, or just somebody who's an ALK specialist, and that ALK Positive has that list of ALK specialists around the country. And then you get on a treatment plan you're comfortable with. And then at the time of progression, that's the other time where it really makes sense to go back and see that same person or some other ALK specialist, and make sure that you've done a biopsy, that you've looked for all the other potential, treatment options that might be available to you. In some ways, getting a second opinion is kind of difficult, because if it differs from what your oncologist is, then it sort of puts the onus on you to decide, which of those. Yes. Yeah. So and then it's like, do I get a third opinion? Yeah. So that's
Yes.
That's one difficult aspect, but that just highlights that it's really critical to become very hardcore about educating yourself. And the ALK 101 videos are a great place to start. But there's so many resources to learn about ALK. I mean, I'm a doctor, but I didn't know anything about ALK lung cancer. There's Wikipedia, ChatGPT. You can take medical articles and you're like, this doesn't make any sense. Put it into ChatGPT and it'll like give you a summary of it. That can be a great resource.
Top tip.
Yeah.
That's great.
So, yeah,
that's-
that's my thoughts.
That's really great, and I appreciate you saying about the second opinion in the very beginning. And there's so many of us who might have a relationship with our oncologist, and we feel this pressure not to seek a second opinion or to seek anyone else. But I remember actually Quirk in a panel he did 2 years ago where he said, find a team that not only you believe in, but believes in you and wants you to live. And I often think of Quirk's words because I thought they were so powerful, getting the right team. At the end of the day, it's our lives, right? We have to advocate. I mean, Jay, coming back to you and the role of the care partner in this, I don't know if you've played a role in helping to build a team. Your wife and your daughters are all nurses, right? So in an interesting way, not that you're oncology necessarily, but you have a bit of a background. But here you are. So tell us more about your role in assembling a team, perhaps.
Okay, fair enough. By the way, I'm almost feeling like I'm the class clown here, so I don't want to give the wrong impression. Levity is very important, though, right? Levity, this is serious stuff, right? It's very, very serious, but there are times where you need to be able to, kind of break the ice a little bit. Having they gang up against me, right? There's 4 of them versus me, but we do it as a team, and one of the things that happened was we kept this very, very secretive for, in my opinion, far too long, because it weighs on you not only as the ALK, but as the PALK as well. Because you have to keep this a secret. So my recommendation is, as soon as you're comfortable letting it out, you should. It's cathartic. It's good for not only the ALK, but the as I'm calling PALKs as well. And as for the team itself, my gut feeling is the larger the team you could build, the better. That's not just the medical team, but it's also the friends and family team. I know people that have T-shirts with the name of the person and it's Team John. Fantastic. If that's your thing, you do it. There are people that just have the one person, and that one person is plenty. If you have nobody, there's a team here, right? ALK Positive is here to assist you if you got nobody.
That is so brilliant. And Juli, I wanted to come to you next, and because I think all this discussion is also, really important. But I think about in the support groups and across, you also have to be quite strong because we deal with news of progression, right? We grow to love our ALK family, and we then get difficult news of progression or even worse, death. And how do you manage through those? Because I think, do you just self-select and withdraw from the group in those moments? Because you just don't know when that news is going to be there. So how do you're such a positive person. I just wonder, how does someone like you get through this?
So someone like me actually just went through progression. So that was hard. But in what Matt says, having that second opinion, having that team around you. Before I progressed, I'm a little bit obsessive about the whole thing. So I kind of had been going crowdsourcing the group, what would happen if I progressed? So in a way, I walked into my oncologist at MSK with all the questions. I was already prepared. I'd been prepared for progression from the time that I was diagnosed. So, I'm one of those people. But what do? Again, in the knowledge that research is going to stay ahead of me and I'm not going to die, I went into the appointment. I spoke to my first oncologist. She suggested what I thought she was going to suggest. We went to my second opinion. She suggested the same, and they are very much aligned. They speak often. Had they had differing opinions, I don't know how I would have felt, but I think that I kept the positivity in the knowledge that I was really going to be okay. I have a great support system, and because of all of you guys and because of the Facebook group, I see everybody's gone through what I've gone through, and they're still here. So it's really just, again, knowledge is power. If you know, you can kind of confidently forge ahead. Also, I have so many good things to look forward to. I have my own wedding. I've got my children, my grandchildren growing up. I'm not going anywhere, guys. So, that's all here.
That's really wonderful, because I do think no matter how much we know what happens in our condition, we're never ready for progression. And you're definitely one of the braver patients who, like, you were ready for it. I just think none of us really know how we're going to react when this moment happens, but it is amazing that we do have this ALK community, the videos, the 101 series that Colin, did for us, and many others. So really important stuff. I wonder, Brandi, if how you prepare and stay ahead in your own condition. What tips do you have for others here?
Yeah, I don't know if I can top what Juli said, but she's really right. Like, I think a lot of us is, once we're diagnosed, you're kind of thinking like, well, what's next? So I think that is a big part of feeling confident and feeling a little bit of control over what we absolutely cannot control, is knowing what's next. That's why I get so excited about the research, because it's like knowing that, okay, if this fails, then I've got this and I've got this, and now we've got the Nuvalent trial. It's like, okay, So I agree completely. Yeah, that knowledge is power, and that research is so critical in knowing, and feeling like I'm going to be here. I can do this,
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Matt, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, because of the research and because of like everything we've heard about at this summit that is being done on the scientific front and the research front and the palliative care front, the past is not what the future is. If you look back at, say, 5-year survival rates, then that means those patients were getting treated 10 years ago, really. And the treatments now are way better than they were 10 years ago, even for ALK, especially for ALK. So, whatever you read about, the future is going to be better than that. And it's going to be a lot better than that, because things are accelerating. One thing that's crazy about being in medicine is that any doctor will tell you it's hard to keep up with their own field, because things are accelerating so much. And there's so many new treatments and advances coming out literally every week. I get like these email updates to my inbox, and I just have to delete them because there's so much. But it's great. It just means that everything's going to get better and better from here on out.
That's wonderful. It's such an important role that ALK Positive plays, because for our treating oncologists, they have so many things to worry about. In a way, we have ALK, right? So a lot of the research that we're looking at is here, and I think being informed as a patient is really key, and kind of looking at that, and obviously seeking the right experts, because at the end of the day, we'll never have that. Jay, I wonder, back to being in the support area, what tips do you have to other care partners here in terms of what they can be doing to help, and also self-care? Because I think a lot of it is, how do you help the partner, but it's also happening to all of you and your family. So what do you do to recharge, you might need to take a break. So how do you manage that?
Yeah, that's a fair question, and I kind of go back to what Brandi was talking about mental health. Just as the ALK really needs to make that part of their journey, so do the supporters, the PALKs, as I call them. If you need help, find help. If there are resources out there. Certainly use your family and family members and your friends. There are times you need a break. Get someone to stand in for you if that's the case. If there's an appointment that you just you're not feeling it, get somebody else on the team to attend in your place. It's okay.
Thank you so much. I wanted to go back, because Juli, when you and I were also catching up recently, we talked about, we all have these beliefs when we're first diagnosed, that thoughts come into your head, right? Oh my gosh, I've got this diagnosis. None of us really, I don't think anyone in this room ever expected to have this diagnosis. So what is the one thing when you look back that you think, when I was diagnosed, I thought X, which has completely not been the case? So, and I'll ask everyone else to do the same things, so you can get thinking on your question, your answer.
When I was diagnosed, well, you know, to what Jay said, at first I was very private. And I think when I was diagnosed, I thought that when people knew I had cancer, they were going to treat me very differently. But I think it's made me my more authentic self with people. So I feel like people treat me differently, but in a better way, in a different way. I can't explain it, but I really just thought the stigma of having cancer would make people treat me differently. And they haven't. I mean, I really feel like I'm a different person with the people. I'm my more authentic self with people. I want to be real with people. I think people see that I'm living and thriving. I also didn't think I would thrive. I thought I would actually be sick. So that's something that completely different than what I originally thought.
Well, for me, whenever I was first diagnosed, of course, I thought, oh, this is the end, you know, because I also I had to start with chemo and radiation, so I have like the more difficult start to it, and I immediately told people, like, I immediately had a community response, and I am honestly so grateful that it was out there in the beginning, because I mean, I'm in Atlanta, but I'm in like a little city of Decatur, smaller community, and like, you know, my kids' teachers they've been, you know, like they know them, right? It's like growing up almost in a small town, but you're in a big city. So they've known them for all of these years. But I had like teachers coming to get play dates with my kids. I had meal trains. I had just so much support. I had people doing my laundry and people just sending me notes and messages, and just, you know, just so much love and support in the community. So that, on top of, you know, me actually meeting a lung cancer survivor and seeing like, oh, like, they're like, they look okay, like they look healthy, like meeting Quirk and Patty, those were like the first 2 lung cancer survivors I met. That gave me a little bit of hope, like, oh, maybe I won't be gone. And that was before I'd even done any research. So, you know, it was just so nice to know, one, that nobody really, you know, nobody judged me. As far, like you said, Julie, is like, you know, I'm like enveloped in love. So I know, I feel like I can't leave my town, because especially while my kids are still in school, like, because if something happens, I know that my community will embrace me. And I'm really so thankful for that, for being able to live in that kind of, with that kind of support.
What a wonderful experience. I guess it's also different because people do talk about the support that comes out, but obviously you were in a different phase with going through chemo and immuno. I was speaking with someone yesterday who said, like, he had to tell people, stop sending them meals. I'm like going to work on Monday, you know, like, because he's actually feeling quite well. So everyone is so different.
I had to tell them once I was feeling better,
stop.
like in like May or June, you know, I'm like, okay, guys, I don't need meals anymore. I can walk up my stairs now. I'm good. Yeah.
I'm good.
Like, if you want to send a couple of more, I'll stick them in the freezer. But
That's it. Yeah.
I'm okay.
Very nice. How about you, Matt?
What was the question? Oh,
what did you believe then? Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of my most acute points of like fear when I was first diagnosed centered around my kids. They're 5 and 8 now. They were 4 and 6 then, and in some ways, they totally just gave me a reason that I wanted to live, and they're a source of, you know, joy, and they just kept me going. But it also, you know, some of my darkest thoughts were related to them too. So, but what I would tell myself is that, you know, it's okay. They're going to be okay. We kept everything from them for a while, and then we sort of shared it with them in ways that they would understand, you know, and I think that I was worried they would just take it really hard, or I didn't know what their reaction would be.
Yeah.
But they kind of were just like, okay, go. Can we go play soccer now? Like, yeah.
I'm sure they're taking their cue from you, because I think that's what my husband says to me. The whole family often takes their cue from how I'm feeling. I'm kind of the barometer, which is also a lot of pressure on you to feel like, geez, if I'm down, is everyone else going to be down? But your kids are also so young.
Can I just say something funny, Matt? When I was diagnosed, obviously everybody's devastated, and the thoracic surgeon walks in and says, you have adenocarcinoma, lung cancer. And first thing I said is, how will I tell my children? And he said, well, how old are your children? I said, 25, 27, 20. Just perspective.
Yeah. No, I understand exactly how you feel, and I bet a lot of people with young children, have that same kind of boom. As I said, I'm a mom of 4. My youngest was 3 years old, and then I had an 8-year-old and a 9-year-old. No, she was 7 and 8, and then a 16-year-old. So it was like that big pressure, like, oh my gosh. And of course I'm thinking, is my 3-year-old going to remember me? That was my morbid thought. Like, it was really like, am I going to live long enough for him to even remember who I am? And I'm just so thankful. I'm like 6 years out, and I'm like, I'll be in that 10-year picture. No doubt about it. And like my hashtag, whatever I finally do post, is like hashtag give me 20. Right? And like, I want that 20 years. I want to be at my son's graduation from college. Okay, that's my goal. But this is just a note, and on a side note, because the mental health for the family is also important. It's also critical. Like for me, we had a lot of issues. We had things going on with the divorce, but your parent having cancer is a big deal. So that, like, personally, for one of my children, has brought up a lot of anxiety, and that we have to address. It's all valid anxiety. Like, you're a parent, you're this person who they are counting on, who they look to make sure that, they're fed, they're happy, you are their person. So we've got, as Jay, there are palkies, right? Even your children are your palkies. Even the little children are your palkies. So this is just a side note. There's a camp called Camp Kesem. Yeah, they are. It's a camp called Camp Kesem. If you have young children and you haven't heard of it, it's a camp for kids whose parents have been diagnosed or have passed away from cancer. It is fantastic. It's completely free. It's nationwide in most places. So if you want to, like, one of my kids, they've been going every year since 2019, and they love it. It was a game changer on top of what we're doing at home, just being around other kids who have experienced that, who, it's their community. Like, this is our community, it's their community. So that's just a plug for Camp Kesem, because it was really a big part of our journey as a family, is like dealing with this diagnosis.
Yeah, I think, Matt, you brought up such a special weak point for all of us. It's like the kids, like the family. It strikes you deep inside. Jay, obviously, with your wife as well, this is striking at the very heart of your family. So is there something that you also saw in the beginning that you feared and has turned out to be, just not an issue at all? And then I'm going to close quickly and ask everyone to say something positive at the end, but I'll
Sure. Okay. So I was thinking about it. If you polled, all the ALKs in this room and those online, and you asked how many of them expected the day they got diagnosed to be diagnosed with freaking lung cancer, you probably have 0, maybe 1. It's nuts, and we're no different. And so you're in shock, right? There's this tremendous shock that can't be right. I have a friend here, she went out for a jog. She ended up in the ER.
Right.
Like, what happened? I went running last week, And so the initial thing really is shock, and, am I gonna live? And obviously you see behind us, stronger together. And that's not just the organization, that's also your family, that's your PALKIes, your ALKIes, everybody together. And I would say that it does change, and in the long run, once you learn about ALK Positive, you learn about the research, these unbelievable doctors and what they're doing, and the researchers that are out there, it completely changes your perspective on your future. And as you're talking about 10 years, I think you're going to get your 20. Oh, by the way, who did your laundry? What was that about? We didn't get laundry. You're going to get your 20 plus.
I love it. Jay, while you have the mic, maybe we're going to do a quick fire round so we can close on a high note, because I think there's so much great stuff that's happening for us. We're hopefully with science going to all get our 20 and beyond and just die of old age is kind of the dream, right? So Jay, maybe state what you're most looking forward to this year.
Well, I actually have one of my daughters just recently got engaged. I'm sure I've got other ones coming real soon, and we're going to be having some blowout weddings in the next few years. So.
Matt, you're next.
I'm looking forward to seeing everything my kids do. I'm looking forward. I used to say I was looking forward to teaching them to drive, but I don't think humans are going to be driving cars by the time they're 16. So. And my other one, if I can do two, is I'm really, really looking forward to seeing all the scientific breakthroughs that are going to happen in the next decade. So for ALK and for cancer and for everything, it's going to be incredible.
And for me, I'm looking forward to trips with my kids. I like to do things to make memories. I've already tortured them with the cross-country road trip a couple of years ago. We drove to California from Atlanta. And we've got a couple of cruises coming up, and I'm looking for another little trip for us to do. So that's what I'm looking forward to, making memories and having a good time.
That's what it's about. Wonderful. Juli, I know you have a lot on your plate.
Quirk once said, "Don't waste your cancer," and I think that's a great line. Have something fun planned, always, whatever it is, whether it's long-term, a wedding, short-term, just a lunch with friends. Have something to look forward to, because there's a big long time between the time you were born and whatever's happening at the end. And don't waste your cancer. We have so much life to live, and as we know, so much good research behind us. So just do stuff. Get out there and do stuff. Plan things.
I love that. I'll also add my own, and really it's picking up on Juli's comment there, but I think having goals, if you haven't stopped being the person you were before you were diagnosed, and suddenly you are diagnosed and you can feel like, I was afraid of making plans, all of that stuff, and now I just think like I would make plans out first 3 months out and then 6 months out. Now I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna, like Summer said, I'm gonna buy the coat, I'm gonna buy the shoes, and I'm gonna plan that vacation and keep living. So I hope most of you will continue doing, all of you will continue to do the same thing here. So I want to thank our amazing panelists for sharing their really motivational stories and how you're managing through all of this. And a big thank you to all of you for all we do together for each other. So thank you all. Thank you. And thank you. And I also would like to plug our very own panelist, Matt Quirk, is going to be our guest at our next ALK Talk on the 15th. September 15th, he's kicking off our new season. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise, your knowledge, and bringing both the patient and the clinician's perspective to that. So thank you. We look forward to that one. Please join us. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.